I asked ChatGPT a question today, and I thought you'd be very interested in the response and the subsequent dialogue. I asked them, how did pirates operate on the high seas? It spit out an answer on how they operated, saying they selected a target, they employed ambush and attack, they boarded the vessel, they plundered, there was intimidation and coercion tactics, ransom and negotiation, escape and evade. And then ChatGPT said, and then they repeat this process. With their newfound wealth, pirates would set out to sea once again, seeking out new targets to plunder and continuing their cycle of piracy. Then I asked ChatGPT, in what way could pirates be compared to today's traffic cops? And ChatGPT said, while pirates and traffic cops may seem like vastly different entities, there are a few ways in which they can be compared. And so it talked about enforcement of rules, authority figures, because on the high seas, people viewed pirates as authority figures, and now we view traffic cops as authority figures within their respective domains. But it says pirates commanded fear and respect through their ruthless actions, while traffic cops use their authority to maintain order and enforce laws. Get that? Enforce laws on the roads. Responds to violations. Pirates and traffic cops both respond to violations of the rules they enforce. Pirates would attack and plunder ships that violated their territory or failed to comply with their demands. And traffic cops issue citations, fines, or warnings to drivers who violate traffic laws. And then they talked about their subsequent roles in society. And then ChatGPT says, however, it's important to note that while there may be some superficial similarities, pirates and traffic cops operate within vastly different legal frameworks and societal contexts. So if it's legal to commit piracy, it's okay. Pirates were criminals who operated outside the law, while traffic cops are law enforcement officers tasked with upholding the law and protecting public safety. And this is a really big thing for people in society and for ChatGPT. It's all about public safety. They can get away with what they're doing because it's all for public safety. So I said, how do traffic laws protect public safety, as you say? How is society safer when a person is fined for failure to register a vehicle? ChatGPT says traffic laws are designed to protect public safety in several ways: prevention of accidents, promotion of safe driving behaviors, regulation of vehicle equipment, protection of vulnerable road users, deterrence of dangerous behaviors. They say enforcing traffic laws through fines and penalties acts as a deterrent against dangerous driving behavior. Knowing that there are consequences for violating traffic laws encourages drivers to obey the rules of the road and drive more responsibly. And then it says, regarding your specific example of failure to register a vehicle, while it may seem unrelated to safety at first, vehicle registration serves several purposes that contribute to overall public safety, ensuring that vehicles meet certain safety and emission standards before being allowed on the road, keeping track of vehicle ownership, and facilitating the identification and recovery of stolen vehicles, providing funding for transportation infrastructure and safety programs through registration, fees, and taxes. And then it says, by enforcing laws related to vehicle registration, traffic cops help ensure that all vehicles on the road meet basic safety and legal requirements, contributing to the overall safety of the driving environment. Additionally, failure to register a vehicle may indicate a disregard for other traffic laws, making enforcement of registration requirements part of a broader effort to promote safe driving behavior. So for ChatGPT, it's all about promoting public safety. And then I say, you say that vehicle registration serves to ensure that vehicles meet safety and emission standards. This is not logical because it implies that there are no registered faulty emission system vehicles that could be unsafe and no unregistered vehicles that could be safe and have emission-free systems. Further, one could keep track of ownership and facilitate identification without the necessity of registering annually. Transportation infrastructure, because they made an argument about this, is primarily funded by motor fuel taxes, principally gasoline taxes. Registration fees and taxes are primarily used to fund organizations like the DMV so they can continue to provide vital services. Yeah, vital services. As for your last paragraph, you say traffic cops help ensure that all vehicles on the road meet basic safety and legal requirements, contributing to the overall safety of the driving environment. It cannot be demonstrated that this is the function of traffic cops. Traffic laws are often used as a justification to fine, harass, and imprison innocent individuals who are not guilty of committing crimes. Your assertions do not comport with reality. And then ChatGPT says, you make valid points and raise important considerations regarding the role of traffic laws and vehicle registration. Allow me to address them. Vehicle registration and safety standards. You're correct that simply registering a vehicle does not inherently guarantee it meets safety or emission standards. Safety and emission standards are typically assessed during vehicle inspections rather than through the registration process itself. So then why did ChatGPT suggest that this was a function of registration? However, vehicle registration does provide a means of tracking vehicles and their owners. Yeah, that's what we want. We want our private property and ourselves to be tracked by the government, which can aid in identifying vehicles that may require inspection or maintenance to ensure they meet safety and emissions requirements. So it all comes back to safety for ChatGPT and for people who are blinded by what is called authority. Ownership, tracking, identification, it goes through that. Funding of transportation infrastructure. You're correct that motor fuel taxes, particularly gasoline taxes, are a primary source of funding for transportation infrastructure. Registration fees and taxes may vary in their allocation across jurisdictions, but they often contribute to funding various aspects of transportation, including road maintenance. The majority, from what I've read, the majority of registration fees, which is an exorbitant tax that just breaks and oppresses a bunch of people, goes toward funding organizations like the DMV so they can become more powerful, more fully staffed, and gain more of a control in that area. It says role of traffic cops. While the primary function of traffic enforcement officers is indeed to ensure compliance with traffic laws and regulations, it is true that instances of abuse or unjust enforcement can occur. It occurs on a daily basis, all the time, in every agency across every state in the United States. Traffic enforcement should ideally prioritize public safety and the prevention of accidents rather than solely focusing on revenue generation through fines. Thank you for highlighting these nuances and complexities in the functioning of traffic laws and vehicle registration systems. It's essential to continually evaluate and improve these systems to ensure that they effectively serve their intended purposes while minimizing any negative consequences or injustices. To which I respond, this is supposedly the land of the free. Regulation and restrictions by government entities and agents don't signify freedom. According to the Declaration of Independence, the founders of this country wanted to live free from government restriction and tyranny, not under it. In fact, they very notably declared their independence from such. Had they had vehicles back then, it is highly unlikely they would submit to a British vehicle registration system. Wouldn't you agree? It's going to be interesting to see the answer to that question. Do you think the founders of this country who wanted liberty or death would want their property tracked and taxed by an irresponsible and coercive government they didn't trust? Especially when you're talking about taxing a piece of property, one's vehicle, that has already been taxed. Do you approve of the continued taxation on a piece of property that has already been taxed? If so, what is your justification for this, and how is this fair? You say this registration of property is intended to enhance public safety, but what did the architects of the Constitution say with regard to safety as a trade for liberty? Ben Franklin said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Was he wrong? You say, vehicle registration systems are currently the established method in many jurisdictions, and they serve additional administrative purposes beyond mere identification, such as taxation and enforcement of certain laws. That they are currently established systems and methods is not in question. However, the funding of these systems is parasitic in nature, as they tax property that has already been taxed, thus extorting money from hardworking Americans. You don't get a pass simply because this oppressive system is established. The American Revolution was principally caused by colonial opposition to British attempts to impose greater control over the colonies and to make them repay the crown for its defense of them during the French and Indian War. Historically, the three significant political causes of the American Revolution were the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, and the Intolerable Acts. If you're not familiar with those, look them up. It's pretty interesting. How do you think the colonists would have responded if the British imposed an additional registration tax on horses and equipment used in the transportation of private property upon the public roads? Regarding point number 3, we know federal and state governments are notorious for wasting money and resources. Adding registration fees to money they already demonstrated a profound lack of accountability and integrity in handling seems quite illogical and frankly immoral. As for point number 4 and the role of traffic cops, you say efforts should be made to ensure fairness, transparency, and accountability in traffic enforcement practices. So far, fairness, transparency, and accountability has not been possible to achieve within the walls of federal and state departments. In fact, from the practical standpoint, they are soundly rejected, and they're rejected wholeheartedly by the authorities. Traffic cops and the police departments they work for maintain a monopoly on force, authority, and unfortunately, irresponsibility and brutality. Their policing for profit schemes have been widely publicized in the mainstream press, yet no significant reformations have materialized, and the people still suffer under their rule, all under the guise of your suggested public safety excuse. It would seem that the answer to the active police criminality, see the conclusion of the Mullen Commission's investigation into systemic corruption within the NYPD, would be to remove the ability of governments to empower and enrich themselves through the registration/traffic ticket scheme that is currently in place. Why haven't you expressed this as a viable option? ChatGPT says, you bring up several compelling points regarding government regulation, taxation, and the balance between individual liberty and public safety. Let's address each of your concerns. Government regulation and taxation. You argue that government regulation and taxation infringe upon individual freedom, echoing the sentiments from the Declaration of Independence. It's true that excessive regulation and taxation can indeed impede personal freedom and economic prosperity. The tension between government control and individual liberty has been a central theme throughout American history. Historical context and resistance to British control. You highlight historical examples of colonial resistance to British control, particularly regarding taxation without representation. Indeed, the American Revolution was sparked in part by opposition to perceived unjust taxation and government overreach. The idea of imposing additional taxes or regulations on personal property, such as horses and equipment, would likely have been met with similar resistance by the colonists. Note that right there. ChatGPT looks like they're starting to turn some lights on in that old dark house of theirs. Efficiency and accountability by government. You rightly point out concerns about government efficiency, accountability, and the misuse of taxpayer funds. It's crucial for governments to be transparent and accountable in their use of resources, and there is room for improvement in many areas of governance, including transportation, funding, and law enforcement practices. The role of law enforcement, including traffic enforcement, is to uphold laws and ensure public safety. However, instances of abuse, corruption, and misuse of power within law enforcement agencies are serious concerns that must be addressed. Reforms aimed at improving accountability, transparency, and community trust are essential to addressing these issues. And ChatGPT ends with this. In considering solutions, it's important to engage in constructive dialogue and explore alternatives that balance individual freedoms with the need for public safety and efficient governance. This may involve reassessing existing policies, implementing reforms to improve accountability and transparency, and exploring innovative approaches to addressing societal challenges. Ultimately, the goal should be to create a society where individual rights are respected, government is accountable to the people, and public safety is prioritized without sacrificing essential liberties. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comments section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. If you want to support the channel further, grab a shirt, become a channel member, but more importantly, understand that your freedoms have a cost, and that cost is eternal vigilance. And indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Let's stop securing our own oppression, and let's start today. I'll see you in the next video.